This session is about vSphere, vCenter Appliance specifically. I'm Madhub Gulati. I'm in the vSphere product management team. My team handles a lot of the core vSphere lifecycle pieces from product management side that you will see today in terms of deploying the vSphere platform, doing high availability backup, maintaining the platform, and also looking at large-scale deployments. I have with me Miguel Jensen. He's from Denmark, and he's going to share his perspective towards the end on using the appliance as well. Just a usual disclaimer, I might share with you some of the features. So just some of the information there might be future information, so just keep in mind when you share outside. So the agenda today is three main sections. We're going to focus on why do we need to choose vCenter Appliance? Why is it important to consider that? What are the different factors we take into account? Then we will talk about what does it mean to manage vCenter lifecycle, especially in the context of the appliance. And then Michael will share his experience with using the appliance. So let's get started. When you guys think of the appliance, I mean, this technology has been there for the last 4 or 5 years, right? We've been thinking and talking about the appliances. Around late 2010, it kind of peaked when everybody said everything would be delivered as appliances. I know big vendors like Oracle were trying to, and SAP were trying to deliver their enterprise software as appliances. And clearly, it didn't take off in that big way that we thought it would, right? But for certain applications, it is still pretty relevant. For certain applications, there is still value in using this model, and it gives you certain benefits that we have been talking about for the last 5 years. So vCenter, we believe, is one such application where we can still very well have a contained, controlled environment and deliver an appliance model, and we think it could be used in very large environments. So let's look at what are the typical sort of benefits of using an appliance, right? So if you look at an appliance, it's essentially your virtual machine with just enough operating system, which means I'm trying to put only those bits of the OS that are relevant to the application, right? So that reduces your security surface, makes it more secure. It also makes it more performant because now I have more control over the operating system and the components inside so that I can optimize it for the application, right? So it's kind of a control stack. And the key value is time to market. So it's very easy to deploy applications in an appliance format because you can download one package, just roll it out, and there you go, right? Especially those customers who have a large number of vCenters, you definitely want some easier way to roll out vCenter faster. Manageability, again, if you're concerned about patching and managing your operating system and figuring out what database to use and then involve a DBA and a storage admin and a network admin to configure things, it takes quite a bit to get a stack up and running, right? And in this case, it's a stack that's pre-configured, pre-tested, and bundled for you. So there is obvious benefit in being able to manage it in a very simple manner. Performance, right? A lot of people think appliances cannot be very performant, and we'll talk about it more today. In fact, in some cases, appliances are actually more performant because you can, since I said you can control the stack, you can optimize certain components for the application that you cannot do in a general open system. So we feel that, especially for vCenter, we have been able to see sometimes equal, sometimes better performance in the appliance format. Security, as I said, it's a smaller surface to scratch. We can create it more out of box, and so we think we can make it more secure. And generally, it reduces your total cost of ownership because we are talking about a lot of components here for which you don't have to pay a huge license cost because we're talking about a lot of open source components in there. So what does vCenter Appliance look like, right? So it's essentially a security hardened SUSE base that we use, and we have a full team in VMware that does security hardening of this and works with SUSE very closely. And then we have the PostgreSQL database on top of SUSE. Again, we do a lot of contributions to the community on the Postgres side. We have fixed probably few hundred bugs in the last 2 years itself. So there are specific projects in VMware dealing with contribution to open source, and we make sure that this is a database that we as VMware back. This appliance has a shell access for folks who are very comfortable with a shell and want to do scripting, etc. And also, we have a UI available starting 6.0 U1 for easier management. So what has changed since 5.5, right? And why do we have a big session this year on this topic, and we haven't been doing so many sessions in the previous VMworlds, right? And the main reason is we have, in the last 2-3 years, invested heavily on this side, and we think that the 6.0 appliance really is sort of enterprise ready. So in terms of scalability, as you can see, we have brought the appliance at scale parity with Windows. So in terms of the usual scale numbers, hosts per VC, number of VMs per cluster, it's now, the published numbers are same as Windows vCenter. Also, there was a big gap before around linked mode. So people who don't know, linked mode basically gives you visibility across multiple vCenters. And this feature was earlier available only on Windows version of vCenter because we used a Windows-specific technology. But now we have rewritten linked mode, so it can be used across the board. And here are some more differences from 5.5, specifically around linked mode. And as you can see in 6.0, you can now not only see inventory across vCenters, search across vCenters, but you can also see some of the data like policies and tags, which you could not see before. So there is a huge improvement in linked mode itself, and we think now it's available in the appliance, so that makes appliance a very viable choice. So let's look at some of the performance charts, right? So there is, our performance team has specifically focused on appliance performance. We have, and we have a session, a detailed session on this coming up. I think it's tomorrow. But this is just a glimpse of that. And you can see in terms of throughput, when we are talking about number of operations per minute that you can do, or the churn rate on vCenter, you can see that 6.0 can handle a lot more churn and a lot more, the throughput is much higher in case of 6.0. Similarly, on the latency side, you can see that the latency has drastically gone down in terms of the latency of performing operations. And again, from 5.5 to 6.0, there's huge performance improvement. And you can see like it's almost less than, more than 200% benefit here. So, with these charts, we get confidence that, yes, not only have we made 6.0 better than 5.5, but in terms of Windows versus appliance, you can see they're almost at parity. And in some cases, especially large workloads, we see that appliance sometimes performs better than Windows. So there's a full-fledged session on this Extreme Performance Series, vCenter Performance Best Practices. So folks who are interested in knowing more about the details on this, you can attend this session. So once, let's say you feel, yes, in terms of scale and performance, appliance is ready, but is it easy to manage that environment? What does it mean for me to do my day-to-day monitoring, diagnostics, et cetera, for vCenter in an appliance environment? So we're going to go through the life cycle as we see it. And in this specific release, we have focused a lot on looking at the life cycle holistically, right? So we have heard from a lot of you, pain points in these certain areas, right? I want the installer to be more streamlined. I want it to be OVF-based. I want a backup solution that works end-to-end. I would like to have better diagnostics for vCenter. So we've heard quite a bit from you guys. And so we focused this release on delivering this theme as a life cycle, and we've tried to improve, and we continue to improve. So you will see that another couple releases, this is going to get better. So let me focus on each of these areas and talk about what we have done in 6.0, and also some of the things that are coming in 6.0 U1, which is slated to be out sometime this year. So install and upgrade. So let's talk about the configuration. In terms of appliance configurations, there are two prescribed configurations. In the past, we have been very flexible about it. So we said, hey, you can put the different vCenter services on different machines, and that actually made it really sort of difficult to upgrade when we went to 6.0. So with 6.0, we said we're going to keep it very simple, keep it very prescriptive. So there are two configurations available. One is the embedded PSC mode, in which case the PSC, which is essentially SSO++. PSC has SSO licensing service in it. It has some tagging and certificate management features. So that's PSC, Platform Service Controller. And there are two modes available. In one mode, the PSC or SSO is embedded in the same machine as vCenter services, and the other mode in which PSC is running on a different machine from vCenter. So these two modes, the first one we call as embedded PSC mode, and second one we call as external PSC mode in 6.0. And you can choose one or the other depending on how large your environment is, and there are some other considerations regarding that. In terms of database, again, the appliance, we recommend to use the embedded database. So the appliance comes with embedded Postgres, and that's running on the same machine as vCenter services. So in an embedded configuration, everything is running in one machine, right? And in the external PSC configuration, PSC is running outside. And the performance numbers I was showing you before were with embedded Postgres. So it is with this simplified configuration. So we do have support for external Oracle in 6.0 and 6.0 U1. I do know some customers who use external Oracle with the appliance in 5.5. So we do support it in 6.0 and 6.0 U1, but we have plans to sort of deprecate it in the next release. So I just want to make sure that if you're using it now, that's fine. We'll continue to for the update releases, but in the next release, we expect you to move to the embedded Postgres because we think that's a viable option now. So let me focus on the install upgrade a little bit. There is a full-fledged session on it. So again, this is a sneak preview, and for folks who are interested in this session, they can attend it. The appliance installer, again, there's a GUI installer available. There is also scripted CLI automation support. There was a tech note about it before. We have done more testing on it in 6.0, so you should feel more confident in using the scripted CLI option starting with 6.0. Also, when you deploy the appliance, it comes in different sizes. So we test for specific bucketed sizes. As you know, we are all moving to the cloud, and we're all thinking in terms of standardization. We're all thinking in terms of, just like Amazon, we want to deploy our machines, which are standard sizes, so they're easy to manage, easy to allocate, and also help us utilize our hardware in a much better way. So we give out-of-box sizing, tiny, small, medium, large for the appliance. And most of our sort of benchmarking is against these standard sizes. Today, we use the number of VMs and number of hosts as our metric for sizing. But we are looking in the future to consider DB space and some of the other memory CPU characteristics in deciding what the right sizing should be. In terms of upgrade, if you're already on 5.5 appliance, you should be able to directly upgrade to 6.0 U1. And that upgrade is available in both modes. So you can do the embedded PSC, embedded SSO to embedded PSC upgrade, or you can do external SSO to external PSC upgrade. So both options are available. We also have a migration tool as a Fling that's available. So if you're on vCenter on Windows and looking to move to the appliance, we have a Fling available, but it is a Fling. So, it's for evaluation purposes to be used in test dev and for us to get your feedback, but it's definitely not a fully supported production option because it's a Fling, right? So what are we doing in that space? So that's what I'm excited to talk about today. We'll show you, I'll get to it in a second. So on install upgrade, if you guys are more interested in knowing what are the 6.0 features in detail for install upgrade, we have a session. Please go ahead. It's a full-fledged deep dive on vSphere install upgrade. So let me show you a nice demo. And this is a tech preview of the migration tool, right, to take you from vCenter Windows to the appliance. And here what you're seeing is on the left is a Windows box. And I have, let's say, vCenter Windows, typical with an external database. It could be SQL or Oracle. And what I want to do is move to the appliance, which is the right side. And the appliance has an embedded Postgres database. And both of them, in this case, both of them are running the single sign-on or SSO embedded, right, in this case. There is a third machine, the client machine, that is just basically my browser. And the browser is for me to just connect to the appliance UI. As I said, in 6.0, we are shipping a appliance management UI. that you can access from the browser. So third machine is just the client machine. So in this tech preview, what you would see is we will go through what does it mean to migrate. And we are going to first go and install a migration assistant on the Windows machine. That's the green box on the left. And then we are going to go to the migration UI, which is part of the appliance UI on the right. And then from there, we're going to fire the migration operation. And the migration is going to suck all the state from the Windows machine and bring it to the appliance. So that's the kind of the flow. So let's get to the demo. Okay, it's an MPEG file, so hoping to start playing. Yeah, so as you can see, that's the migration assistant. I installed it on the Windows box, and it's just a command line option. Then I deploy the appliance, and I go to my client and connect to the appliance UI. So I'm going to log into my appliance now. So let's get to that. So here, I'm going to a browser, getting to the appliance UI. And the appliance UI, there is an option to migrate from Windows to appliance. So I'm going to go to that option. I'm going to provide appliance credentials. And then I'm going to provide credentials for the Windows box, the source box that I want to connect to. So I'm going to connect to the Windows box. It's going to do some pre-checks. So let's go back and look at the migration assistant. And you will see that it is showing that pre-checks are being done on the Windows side. So once the pre-checks complete, then you will see that the migration UI is going to pull in all the data. So we go back to the UI. And here I say, I only care about the configuration data, not the stats. So get me all the inventory from Windows to the appliance. And I say, yes, start the process. So start the migration process. And what it's going to do is it's going to export all the state from the Windows machine, and it's going to bring it to the appliance. So the data in the database, the configuration files, the SSO data, it's going to bring everything to the appliance side, and it's going to shut down the Windows machine. It's going to transfer the public IP from the Windows to the appliance, so that appliance is just showing up as just like the Windows machine. So then, we continue the process. It's going to do the export all the data from Windows, shutting down the Windows machine. So the Windows machine would go away, and then on the appliance side, you would see that the configuration will happen. So it's going to configure the appliance with that right configurations from the Windows machine. That's it. And then if you go to the browser now and connect to vCenter, which is running in the appliance, then you should be able to access the web client for that Windows, for that vCenter machine. So you log into the web client, and it's up and running. It has all the inventory that you have migrated from the Windows machine. So that's the tech preview. We are working on this project, and we know that it's very critical for some of our customers who have large amounts of inventory, and they would want to move that to the appliance. For 6.0, you can clearly use the appliance for cases where you do fresh installs. I do know a lot of customers, even very large customers with large deployments, who do start fresh with every major release. So hey, 6.0 is out. I don't care about my historical data. I want to start fresh. And in that case, you can certainly deploy the appliance today and start fresh, right? And also, I know some folks who actually just remove all the hosts from vCenter and add them back again when they do the upgrade, just because they want a clean hardware, clean vCenter box with a new major release. So if you're going to do that, again, you don't care about moving the data as it is, and you should be able to, able to get started with the appliance today. So that was on the install, upgrade, and the migration piece. What about the configuration or configuring the appliance? So if you look at what is available today with 6.0 and 6.0 U1, you should be able to do a lot of the network settings either through the appliance shell or through the appliance UI. And there are, different settings that are available. Just simple settings such as, choose a static IP for my appliance or configure the IP using DHCP, set my DNS. You can do the usual things, configure a proxy, and then being able to set time zone and NTP settings. So a lot of the standard configuration can be done for the appliance from the UI itself. There are some security considerations. So when you think of the appliance, again, for some people, it's more open. They want to keep it a little bit more open in terms of keeping the shell access or SSH login access. For some customers, they want to keep it more as a closed black box. So it depends on what you're comfortable with. But there is no requirement to be completely closed or completely open. You can choose what you feel comfortable. So for example, some of the settings you can do on security side is to create some firewall rules, even redirect your log files from the appliance to somewhere else outside if you care about getting a syslog stream for your logs, or if you want to configure a SNMP agent to get SNMP traps from the appliance. Again, we do not recommend that you put third-party agents on the appliance, inside the appliance, because the appliance has been tested for a certain configuration, right? When you put agents in it, we don't know what load that agent puts on the appliance. So I do know some customers who have brought up this, they put some operating system monitoring agents, or they put some backup agents, et cetera. Or sometimes they put some agents that detect failures in vCenter services. So what we are trying to do is give you those features out of box, so you don't need third-party agents. So I will talk about it more going forward, but we want to make the monitoring and diagnostics more out of box. We want to make sure there is a Watchdog service running that's constantly monitoring your vCenter services, so you don't have to put third-party agents. We're giving you backup out of box so that you don't worry about backup agents, et cetera. So the idea is to have more understanding of what load there is on vCenter machine and have a clear sort of monitoring and diagnostics for that. So let's get into the backup, since I brought that topic. So with 6.0U1, we have a very, very good backup solution. And this backs up end-to-end vCenter and the PSC, right? So whether you're running the embedded PSC configuration or external PSC, and again, PSC is essentially SSO++, in both cases, there is clear backup, end-to-end backup available now. And I'm going to show you that solution a little bit. So as you can see, you can back up both configurations. And let's go over what happens when you recover, right? So in case of a vCenter node recovery, so a new vCenter node is recovered from backup, we automatically connect it to the PSC that was already running. So that will just work out of box, right? What happens when PSC fails? So generally, we have two SSO nodes or two PSCs replicating with each other. So if one PSC fails, we're going to bring up another PSC from backup, restore from backup, and then it's going to replicate with another PSC and make sure its state is fine. And then it's going to allow the vCenter to connect to it. So generally, what happens is, so basically, this whole thing would work seamlessly. PSC recovers from backup, waits for it to get configured correctly, and then allows VC to connect to it. So that's the external PSC mode I was talking about. So it's, again, end-to-end backup. The backup solution essentially uses the VADP protocol. I don't know how many of you are familiar with it. For folks who have been dealing with VMware for some time, know about it. It is essentially an API that we had published a few years ago, and we had partnered with almost a lot of storage vendors and backup vendors on this one. So tools like NetBackup, Commvault, they all support the VADP protocol. And with VADP protocol, you can basically, it's a snapshot-based mechanism of snapshotting VMs, and it puts it in the NetBackup store automatically, and then from there to the tape. So there is a standard protocol available, and this solution leverages that. So this automatically gives you integration with third-party backup tools that use this protocol. We have an out-of-box product called VDP, VMware Data Protection product. I don't know if you guys have used that, but that also uses the VADP protocol. So with VDP, we have direct integration in web client for backing up the vCenter appliance, and I'm going to show you that couple screenshots there. So if you go to the web client, you can configure VDP, and you can just say connect to my VDP instance, and that would basically give you the backup management solution within web client itself. You can go and take backups. Here you can see, there are a couple of jobs, backup jobs already scheduled. You can create a new job. And again, you can see all the VMs that are running, and you can say, I would like to back up this specific one. In this case, you see M1, N1. M1 is basically the VC, and N1 is basically the SSO or PSC VM, external. And you can just pick that and back it up. And then the restore is also pretty straightforward. You go to the restore tab, and then out of the PSC and VC, you pick which one you want to restore, right? So you pick the right node, and then just restore it. And as I said earlier, when you restore a certain piece, it automatically comes up and configures with VC, and it'll work. So one thing I've heard is I always ask customers, how many of you already have vCenter backup, right? And a lot of them, almost 80%, would say, yes, I have backup already. And then I say, okay, have you ever tried restoring or recovering from backup? So that is like, a lot of them would say, I've never tried it, or they would say, oh, that doesn't work, right? So it's kind of strange that everybody has backup, but then nobody's restore works. So I think this is probably the first time where we have sort of really given an end-to-end backup restore. It's just another settings screen. So let's talk about high availability. So again, the solution today for high availability is basically use vSphere HA, right? That's the recommendation, which gives you some level of RTO, right? Some level of recovery time, which is in the order of like 30 minutes or so, right? Which means if your vCenter virtual machine that's running on your vSphere on your ESX host, if the host fails or there's a hardware failure, that vCenter VM gets restarted on another host. The standard vSphere HA, right? And what that means is the RTO, the recovery of vCenter is almost same as the time it takes to restart this new VM, the vCenter VM. And that means it is going to be the time it takes to start all the vCenter services. So sometimes if the inventory is really big, it can take a bit longer to start, right? But essentially, this does protect you against host and hardware failures. So if you have any failures at that level, this would protect you. The other complementary feature to protect the application itself is vSphere Watchdog. And this Watchdog service, vCenter Watchdog service, is a service that runs in the background and keeps monitoring the 20 or so vCenter services. So it monitors the web client, it's monitoring your VPXT, it's monitoring all the services and making sure that if it detects any failure of that service, it automatically restarts that, right? And if it's not able to restart the service, and it's a very important service like VPXT or something, then it's going to try to reboot the box, reboot the VM. So the Watchdog basically is an application level availability solution to make sure that it is able to detect failures at the application layer and restart it, right? So the combination of vSphere HA and Watchdog together is what's available today as a high availability solution for vCenter. I do know a lot of you want a higher RTO. So this level of RTO is sufficient for a lot of environments and for a lot of customers. But there are customers who are looking for a higher level of sort of a lower RTO and a higher level of availability. And for them, I would say you need to attend this session. I have this session on Thursday. And I'm going to go over the tech preview of some of the future work we are doing on a high availability side. And we are looking to build some sort of a native, vCenter native HA solution. And I will show you a small preview of that in the high availability session on Thursday. So that's on Appliance HA. So let's look at, I have my appliance deployed, right? I've configured it. I know I've set up my backup options. I have some level of HA available. So now how do I do my day 2? How do I make sure I can monitor my vCenter services? How do I make sure my appliance is performing well? The resources are getting utilized efficiently. And this is a big reason why a lot of customers feel, oh, I'm not comfortable using the appliance because I have so much control over my Windows box and I can do everything I need on my Windows box, right? I have so much control over the vCenter that's running. I can put whatever tools I want and do whatever I want. So one thing we really are trying to enhance is the monitoring and manageability of the appliance so that you feel more comfortable using it. So in the 6.0 U1 release, We are providing appliance management UI, and that's available along with the appliance shell for people who are more comfortable with the shell. The appliance management UI, as I mentioned earlier, allows you to not only do configuration for the appliance, but also shows you some of the health metrics, et cetera, for the appliance. You can generate support bundles. So when there is a problem with the appliance and you talk to VMware support, it's one click, generate the support bundle and send it to them, right? And then you can do basic start, stop, reboot operations for the appliance. In terms of the health monitoring, you can go to the web client and actually look at all the vCenter services that are running. So you can see here auto deploy and a web client and all the VPX and other services that are running. You can see if they're up or down. You can see the health of the services. There are also the node tab, which you're not seeing here, actually also lets you see the memory, CPU, network, storage utilization for your appliance. So you can see what disks are sort of mounted on the appliance, so you can see the storage, et cetera, for the appliance. You can also configure SNMP traps if you're looking for notifications from the appliance. So there is a good level of monitoring available today, and this is one area which we are looking to improve going forward. One of the things we've heard quite a bit is my database fills up, and then I have trouble. So is there a way I can monitor the utilization of my vCenter appliance, but from a database point of view, so that I can see what data types, right, events, alarms, tasks, stats, what is it that fills up my database, right? So those kind of things, and we are looking at that. Also, people want alerting on things, on the database space when it's close to filling up and things like that. So we are definitely looking to enhance this area going forward. Security. Again, we have out-of-box security configurations available. As you know, with the PSC node, we have a lot of security services. You can create your SSO users, groups. You can set password policies, set up password expiration, et cetera. There is a built-in certificate store, so you can store, your own self-signed certificates or certificates signed by another authority. And there's a built-in certificate management in terms of, revoking certificates and things like that. And that's all sort of available, obviously, on Windows side, but also on the appliance side. So when the vCenter node comes up, it automatically replaces its own certificate. The vCenter appliance replaces its own certificate with the certificate that's stored in the certificate store in the PSC. So there is a sort of a automation there to make sure that the appliance boots up with the right certificate. Again, there is a session on the detailed deep dive on security. Johnny Ferguson is doing it. I didn't put a plug here, but it's there in one of the last slides. I've listed all the sessions that are related to my session. And there's a security deep dive session if you're interested in knowing more about configuring SSO and certificate management, et cetera. So patching is another very, very interesting topic, especially in the context of the appliance, right? And this not only affects your compliance. So a lot of customers say for regulatory compliance, they have to make sure security patches are applied in a certain number of days. Also, you want to generally apply patches whenever there are fixes available, right? And again, we had some kind of this solution in 5.5, but in 6.0 GA, it kind of went away. So in 6.0 U1, we are bringing the appliance patching back, and in a better way, I think. So you can apply both product patches, which is vCenter patches, or third-party patches. So we actually also release JRE, Postgres, and other fixes. And all these patches are available in a VMware hosted repository. So you just, you go to the appliance management UI, you connect to the VMware repository, and it would automatically let you it'll automatically let you check updates that are available in the repository and apply the updates. If you don't want to use the VMware repository, or you want to be in an offline mode, like you don't have internet connectivity for every box, vCenter box, then you set up your own custom repository, and you could then use that custom repository for updates as well, right? And again, this is fully integrated with the appliance management UI. So from within the UI, you can say check for updates, and then you see the new updates that are available, and then you can say apply this update. You can also schedule these checks. So you can say check for updates every week, right, or nightly, and let me know when they're available so that I can apply them. So that's an option. and the settings actually allow you to configure whatever repository you would like. How many of you here, so out of the features I talked about, I'm going to take just a poll on what do you guys think about these, right? So on install, upgrade, or migration tool, right? How many of you think migration tool is critical to moving to the appliance? Okay. How many of you think backup is really critical to moving to the appliance? Okay. What about high availability? Okay, so the tool seems to win. What about the monitoring and manageability and diagnostics and more out-of-box manageability for the appliance? Okay. And I'm saying critical as in that's like in the cycle, that's the most critical piece for you. What about patching? Okay. So looks like this cycle is in the order of priority, kind of. Okay, got it. Thank you. So the key takeaways, right, before I hand it over to Miguel, performance and scale for the appliance, definitely 6.0 is, at parity with Windows, if not better in some cases. We definitely have enhanced the patching, backup, appliance manageability in 6.0 U1, and we will continue to work on this. And we think that appliance really offers a good model for, faster time to value, reduces your cost because it's, Postgres and SUSE, so it's free. You don't have to pay for Windows and SQL licenses for those who care. And it definitely reduces your cost of, your total cost of ownership of vSphere. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Miguel to give us his story. Thank you.
Thank you. Just by show of hands, how many in here doesn't understand Danish? Okay, I'll try to take it in English. And please be a bit overbearing. I speak fluently accent with bits of English in it, but I hope you're able to understand me. I work for a municipality in Denmark. Just to put things in perspective, there's about 5 million people living in the country. So a lot of citizens speak up in the entire country. We have about 84,000 citizens, 9,000 employees, and about half of them are using PCs. We are running a vSphere 6 environment. We upgraded very soon after the DA. How many in here has already moved to version 6? Also in production? You're not sure? Beside my server environment, I also have a VDI environment with about 1,000 users. In the vSphere environment, we're running about 500, 550 servers, and we are about almost as virtualized as possible. Right now, I only have 2 servers not virtualized. One is an alert system, and that's because it needs analog telephone lines. And the last one is my backup server. And that's just being decommissioned right now, and we move the backup to storage-based. We are mostly a Windows shop. Name a database, and we're probably running it somewhere. We have about 160 applications on the servers. Looking in the entire environment, about 360 different applications. We handle everything from birth to the funeral. A couple of years ago, I started looking into the appliance, and I could see some benefits about it. If I look at how my vSphere environment looks today, I'm using 4 VMs for running a single vCenter. I have a VM with the vCenter, I have a VM with the database, I have a VM with the single sign-on, and I have a VM for Update Manager. I have always been following VMware's best practice. That means when they told me, you got to distribute your vCenter, I did it. And about 6 months later, they told me, you should consolidate your vCenter. And of course, I said, perfectly, how do I do that? And the answer from VMware, you can't. So for me, moving to the appliance, I can see a lot of benefits for us, just making our environment a lot simpler. And seeing on the version 6, it's at par with the Windows version. I can scale at exactly the same way I can on the Windows version, and in some cases the performance is a bit better. Taking that in mind, I have been running VMware since 2003, so my vCenter has been upgraded a lot of times. And over the years, sometimes after an update you get a bit better performance, and sometimes you don't. But the appliance is definitely a step in the right direction. When I started up in 2003, it was easy. I had some ESX host, and I had a vCenter server. Today, the installation is becoming a lot more complex. And the time where one admin just ruled all, that is over. I have a couple of junior administrators, I have an apprentice, and I have 4 different vCenters, even in my small environment. And for that, I have to have an environment that is just as similar as possible. How many in here just love Patch Tuesday? Yeah. I have to patch my Windows OS on 4 VMs. I have to patch vCenter. I have to patch the database. It's just a lot of work. Also, looking at version 6 of the appliance, it's really getting where it's perfect for at least my environment, and I think it's well for a lot of you. I have been missing Link vCenters, but now it's finally here. How many use Link vCenters today? Yeah, so you know what I mean. And just to get back to the scalability and the performance of the appliance, sometimes it really beats the Windows version. And let's just face it, Windows isn't the most stable platform. I have a lot of times where vCenter went down and it's a Windows problem. And a lot of times it's communication with the database. So moving to appliance with the database embedded is just another possible error you can take away. The way we had started up is, of course, in a test environment and lab environments. I am running a vCloud Director, and as I mentioned, I have an apprentice. The easiest way to let him get started working in a virtualized environment is not to let him mess around in my production environment, and just to spin up a lot of nested labs he can use, and the appliance is just perfect for that. At YouTube, somebody from VMware has placed an install video, and just check it out. It's just as easy as deploying an appliance. I think the video is running for 6 minutes and 47 seconds. I think the installation has been speeded up a bit, but you can see every step necessary to check the install. Quite easy. Looking at the consideration we discussed when we were considering shifting from the Windows version to the appliance. First question, is this product ready for production? And in my opinion, it definitely is. Now for us is the right time to move from Windows to the appliance. Madhu shortly was in to talk about the PSC. Our consideration is, should we make it as simple as possible and keep the PSC in the appliance, or should we make the installation a bit more flexible and make an external PSC? And I think we go for the external of several reasons. First of all, if you have more than one vCenter and want to have them in the same single sign-on domain, you have to have an external PC. And also, if you have a lot of vCenters, I know it's not a hard limit, but VMware recommends not more than 8 PCs in a single site. So, using the external PC, you can spin up more vCenters without any problem. Update Manager is still a challenge. Unfortunately, it's not available as an appliance just yet. I hope it's coming, but I don't know anything about it, but I keep my fingers crossed. But because of that, I still have to use a Windows server for Update Manager. But I'm running NetApp as a storage, and with NetApp, to get the full benefit of the storage system, I have to use NetApp's virtual storage console, which also demands a Windows server. So I can put Update Manager and the NetApp plugin on the same server and use the resources on that. The main reason why I haven't moved my primary production site to the appliance right now is because I don't have the tool to make the transition. As Madhu mentioned, there is a Fling available, and I have tested it out in my lab environment, and it works perfectly for me. Unfortunately, it doesn't work if you have a distributed vCenter. So I'm really looking forward to the new tool. Hopefully it's available when I get home. Probably not, but no pressure. Okay. One of the things I've been looking forward to in Update 1 is, of course, I'd like to get the VMware back. I really want what VMware would make the administration of all the appliances the same, so I don't have to administer the appliances on different ways. So I like the VMware. I think it works great when you has to do anything about the configuration. And what I think is very important, at least for me, is the way the patching is going to run from Update 1. Just to be able to automatically download the patches and just deploy with push of a button. I don't have to find the different patches all over VMware's site. I have to have anything from Microsoft. That's a big win. Also, I know today I'm able to take a backup of the appliance on the storage level. But for me, it's very important to get a real backup solution present in the vCenter GUI. So that's definitely something I'm looking forward to. Looking at the benefits we are going to have switching to the appliance, we're getting back to a more simple design. From 2003 and until now, our environment has just grown and grown. The staff hasn't. We have fewer people to running a bigger environment. And for that, we have to simplify everything we can, automate as much as possible, and we really need a stable platform. And of course, a side benefit for us is we're going to save some licensing on the database side. And another benefit, I was looking at how you deploy the appliance. You have different sizes. For us, we can do with a small installation. It supports 150 hosts and 3,000 VMs. That should be enough for us. And the resources needed for that is just 4 vCPUs and 16 GB of memory and 150 GB of storage. And if for some reason that not performs enough, you could just go to the medium side. That's 8 vCPUs and 24 GB of memory. In total, not counting the Update Manager, my vSphere environment today, or vCenter environment, are using 10 vCPUs, 74 GB of memory, and 640 GB of storage. So even there, we have a benefit in resources, especially on the memory side, is our pain point at the moment. Our vCenter is getting more and more critical for us. As I mentioned, when we started out, it was just an ESX host and a vCenter. We are now adding more and more appliance systems to support our vSphere environments. Part of my job, I also work for the company as a technical architect, and I was just messing around with how our vSphere installation looks today. vCenter is the heart of our installation. Every box around the green one is system connected to the vCenter. So it is essential for us that vCenter is running. And I know when you start up the appliance, it takes some time before the vCenter service is up and running. Okay, it's not as fast in Windows either, but when it's up and running, it's very stable and it performs great.
Great, so we'll open that up for questions. Thanks, Miguel. There are related breakout sessions that I pointed out as we went through it. We also have a Twitter hashtag, migrate to VCSA. So if you have comments, suggestions, anything you want to tweet, use migrate to #2 VCSA as the Twitter hashtag. So there are a few sessions that are coming up. Tomorrow we are going to have a deep dive on install upgrade for vCenter, availability session. We also have a performance session on vCenter, and then a security deep dive for those who want to know how you configure SSO, users, etc. We're going to take questions and then wrap it up. Thank you. Okay, in a big audience, it's really hard. You will have to come to the mic to ask your question. We're going to spend maybe 5 minutes on questions and just then wrap it up. 5 minutes. Please.
Hi, yes. Is moving update manager on the roadmap?
Yes, so as we mentioned, VMware Update Manager is currently still requires a Windows machine, and porting it onto the appliance is a project we are working on. Yes.
I just deployed external PSAs with 6.0, but I feel it's a lot.
Can you speak up a bit? Sorry.
Okay. I just deployed external PSAs in my environment, but I think it's too painful when you're configuring the not the self-signed certificates, but the certificates signed by other authorities. So any other tools coming up?
So
say, before I go live, is there any way to validate my certificates are right or not?
So the question is on, certificates and self-signed certificates versus third-party certificates. I would suggest you attend the security session. You would see a lot of features we are working on. So there is a deep dive security session on Wednesday, 3:30, that can answer that question.
What are the sizing limitations for the Postgres database versus like SQL Express?
Sizing requirements for the appliance. So the sizing guideline that we have in the sizing doc for vCenter, gives you that number. So we do publish those numbers for small, medium, large configurations on how much CPU memory you would need. So yes, we do have sizing guidelines in the documentation.
Okay. My question is about Site Recovery Manager. Is it supported with Appliance version 5.8?
So the question is on Site Recovery Manager. The level of support for Site Recovery Manager is the same whether you use vCenter on Windows or vCenter on the appliance. The level of support is the same because that integration is at the vCenter level. So it shouldn't matter whether you're in Windows or appliance. So it's the same level of integration.
Okay, thank you.
As an add-on to that question, is it on a separate server or is it actually on the appliance? The SRM?
Sorry, didn't get you.
The SRM
Yes.
component, is that on the appliance or do you have to have a separate server for that?
SRM would be on a separate machine, but there'll be integration on the web client side. Yes, through the plugin, yes.
In terms of the migration tool, we're perfectly fine starting from scratch and reconfiguring everything. It's the performance data that we would like to export and re-import, or the cross vCenter vMotion things that don't carry the performance data with it. Is there a way that we can get that data exported and then manually imported, or follow from like a cross vCenter vMotion?
So the question is, when you export the data from vCenter. In case of migration, we are exporting from Windows and putting it in the appliance, and the question is, can I export it to a file outside? What is the use case? Why would you like to put the data outside?
We've got like 6 different monitoring tools, and they all seem to maintain that differently, but vCenter has been historically the place of record for
so
us.
one option is VR Ops, right? VR Operations Manager, which we integrate with, and that can store a large amount of data. So if you're looking to do analytics or reporting on that data, one option is to put vCenter data, most of it in VR Ops, and keep very little in vCenter database, and then do analytics and reporting on VR Ops. If you do not have VR Ops, if you don't have VR Ops, then today we don't have an option to put it somewhere else. We don't.
Will that follow the cross vCenter vMotion and follow the VM to the new vCenter server?
Well, sorry, I didn't get your question.
In VR Ops?
Yes.
Will that performance data follow the VM to a new
Yes,
vCenter
so
server?
the answer is more detailed, so I can take it offline. So his question is, when vMotion happens and VMs move, will VR Ops follow that object, right? So there is, they do recognize the VM being vMotioned, and it does see that data move, yes. But there is some caveat there in what kinds of data. So stats data can move, so there is some caveat there. But yes, they do recognize the object.
From a database perspective, we've been having issues with deadlocks, bringing down vCenter. Is that better with Postgres or that implementation?
So what is better with Postgres?
Well, we've been getting a lot of vCenter going down because of the deadlock issue in the database. So have you seen the same behavior with the Postgres implementation, or is it still,
No,
or is
I'm
it
not
better?
aware of this specific issue, but we have to take it offline. So you have a specific issue with databases, and you're asking if you see that on Postgres.
Exactly,
We'll have to know the issue, and then I'll have to check. I don't know. You just have to talk to me offline. Okay, can you talk to Ravi offline? Yes, great.
I got a question about the migration tool. Will it ever become GA in the sense that you'll officially support it?
So the migration tool, it will be available in the next release. I can't be more specific than that. I showed you the project we are working on, but it's still it's in development, so it's not really available today.
And the next release, is that the U1 or 6.5?
Not an update release, but
okay, and can you give any details on when that's scheduled to be released?
I don't think the schedule is out yet for that.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
I'm a happy vCenter Appliance user, and I like it. But I do have one question about the Postgres database. So I ran into a scenario. Actually, it was on the SRM appliance, to where we had a failed test, and the only solution to get the machine to go back to a normal state would be to go clear a table in the Postgres database, which I could do easily with SQL tools, Microsoft SQL tools, but I didn't find any way, or maybe I don't know where I'm looking, to find some way of editing the tables within the Postgres database. So is there any tool you guys have?
So he's asking for more Postgres tools. And I think we see the need, because as we ask you to move from Oracle SQL to Postgres, you will have more and more requirements around it.
I mean, it was a very unusual scenario that got me into this situation.
Right.
But essentially, at this point, I'm having to tear it down, start over again, because that flag is set in the database, and you have documentation. Hey, if you're on Microsoft SQL, all you do is go in there and clear this flag in the database.
Right.
But I'm like, I can't get in, I can't get to the flag.
Right. Right. So we do recognize that the tooling for Postgres might not be as broad like compared to Oracle and SQL, but we also feel that for vCenter, since it's a sort of a specific environment we are talking about and not a general purpose database, we think for vCenter specifically we should be able to help you out. So we will give more out-of-box support for diagnostics, things that you mentioned,
Very
things
unusual
we know of.
scenarios.
Yes, and also we are looking to put together sort of a DBA guide for Postgres to give you more hands-on help.
So this will be something coming up?
Yes.
Looking forward to.
What's the likelihood or the projected time frame that VUM will be added in? Because while the other ideas of the life cycle are important, that's just as important as all of them.
So we recognize that it's really important to get VMware into the appliance because that's one main service for which you need Windows still, right?
Exactly.
So we clearly are working on that. There are two parts to VMware integration. One is the integration into the web client from the UI side, and that is available in 6.0 U1. So you should be able to go to web client and do the VMware operations and updates from the web client itself. So that is available in 6.0 U1. The back end, which is to move the VMware application from Windows to Linux, that's the work we are doing, the porting work, and it might take some time to get there. But we understand that that's a requirement.
Okay, so then the only other important thing is when you install and configure the entire Virtual Center appliance as a whole, you only get one choice to start. You have to pick one way or the other, embedded or external. Is that right?
When you install the appliance, you can either install embedded PSC or external PSC, yes.
So is there a future plan to allow a transition? Hey, I installed internal, and now I want to make it...
Right. So most common transition is starting with embedded and then going to the external PSC, right, as your environment gets really big. And so this is what we call repointing the VC to external PSC, and this is available in 6.0 U1.
Okay.
This will be available in 6.0 U1, so you can go from embedded to an external PSC configuration.
At least for the small-sized appliance, is vFault tolerance supported?
So a question is on fault tolerance. Supported is very broad, right? So fault tolerance is a feature that's available for high availability, protects against hardware and host failures, right? And it gives you constant checkpointing of your VM into another VM. So that's the feature. That feature is, you can use it for vCenter, but as you know, fault tolerance has its own constraints, right? So it can be used with 4 vCPU VMs. And so if your vCenter happens to be a small or medium on 4 vCPU, you can use it. But also there is a lot of overhead when you use high I/O, high I/O intensive applications like vCenter on fault tolerance. So there is a performance overhead when you use FT. We do have a white paper available on vCenter high availability, and in that paper there is a section on using fault tolerance with VC, and you should look at that.
Terrific.
So it's the vCenter high availability white paper. Great. Thank you guys. Thanks so much.